Do you use Google Calendar for your own personal organization? Well, I use Calendar all the time in my Google job, and I'm using it for work and for personal stuff. And there's definitely a few things that I've picked up along the way. So today, let's go through a few different hacks that I use to make my personal organization a million times easier using Google Calendar. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing that I do is I add tasks using the digital to-do list, digital tasks feature built into Calendar. And some people like to use like a calendar blocking technique where they'll block out like an hour or 2 hours on their calendar to schedule tasks throughout the day. But if you're like me and prefer to work a bit more flexibly than that, then you can still keep track of what you need to do by creating tasks instead. And when you create tasks, Google Calendar creates a to-do list for you, which you can then like tick off as you go, which is super satisfying and built right into your calendar. And you can even schedule these tasks if you want to stay accountable too. So you can put in like a reminder for next week, for example. Plus it makes sure that certain tasks that are kind of more formal stuff, a little bit more easier to track. And you can even have like a sidebar which shows all of the different tasks that you have active right now. And there's even a really good unofficial Google Tasks app that I would recommend installing on your Mac or Windows PC too. You can categorize these tasks and list them by date so that you have an understanding of what you're doing today and also what you're doing the day after that and the next day, etc. So for me, it's a really good place to keep all of my to-dos and just get a good feeling that boom, I've got one thing done, another thing done, and they're all ticked off when they're done. So the second tip is all about emailing yourself with reminders and kind of sticking to the theme of to-dos. If you are someone who is closer to your email than to your calendar, you can have actions sent to you instead. So say for example, there's something you need to do regularly, like every week you put this on your calendar and you change the notification setting to email instead of notifying it through the Google Calendar app. And then this will send you an email reminder instead, which if you're someone who's checking your inbox 24/7, you're maybe more likely to see and more likely to action. And taking it one step further, one thing that I've also seen many people do as well is set up a filter within Gmail so that when those calendar reminders come in and the email is calendar-notification@google.com, you could then get these to automatically label whatever you choose. So for example, if this automatically comes in, you could have a label like follow-up. So you'll know that you need to do something about it when this event reminder comes into your inbox. And the third tip that in my opinion feels like having a personal assistant without having one is getting your daily agenda emailed to you. And if you're the kind of person who is always super busy, you may want to just receive a daily agenda or a daily plan of what your day's tasks and events actually look like. If you think you'd benefit from something like this and you'd like Google Calendar to email you your daily agenda, this is what you need to do. So if you head into Google Calendar, if you go into the settings menu, click on the gear icon and then settings. Within that, there should then be an option for settings for my calendars. Then you want to scroll down to general notifications and then under daily agenda, choose email, and then the emails will be sent to your email, whatever you're using that calendar for. So that is a super easy tip to be able to get yourself an email agenda sent out every single day automatically, as if you're having a personal assistant do it for you. The next tip is for someone who's a little bit more old school and maybe prefers to see things on paper versus on a screen for whatever reason. And this tip is all about being able to print your calendar. So if you want to be old school and you want to print off your day or your week in advance, you can go to the month that you want to print and you can select print in settings. You can adjust the date range and all that kind of stuff, change the font size, orientation, and all of that jazz, so you can get an understanding of all the different events that you've got going on and get a sight of your whole week. The only caveat with printing off your event is if something changes or someone is out of office or they rearrange something, then if you print it, you could start on Monday morning getting a good understanding of where you are. By Wednesday, that plan could change. However, it's definitely nice sometimes to, I'll sometimes print out like an agenda, and then so I can just have like on my desk next to me the kind of like daily plan like printed out, and so I roughly know that, okay, 2 o'clock I've got this meeting, 4 o'clock I've got this presentation. Particularly if I'm trying to do like deep work and just be really focused on writing a document, I can just look over the piece of paper and be like, okay, cool, I have that meeting, rather than distracting myself by opening up another tab or looking in Gmail. So the next tip is something that appears to be simple, but actually can be a bit of a game changer if you're trying to find an old meeting or really anything at all in your calendar. And the reason it may seem simple is because we're talking here about search. Everyone knows about Google search, but within calendar, you can actually use the search function in a very, very advanced way. It's super, super powerful. So you could search through things like specific names of people who will be or who at an event or a meeting that you were attending. You could search for the date or time in which something took place. You could search for the location. So you don't have to scroll back like weeks and weeks to be like, okay, last Tuesday, where was it that we went to dinner again? Or who did we go for? Or was that person at that event? Or did they attend this meeting? You could literally just search their name or search the location. So for me, this saves so much time searching through my whole calendar to find what I'm looking for. And usually I probably won't be able to find it easily. And where this is like next level power is if, for example, you have like a weekly meeting agenda, or maybe there's like an all hands, and someone attaches the slide or the presentation to that calendar event, you can search for the document that was attached to that calendar event. And so if you're in a rush and you're trying to find the deck that was on that calendar and you don't want to trawl through your Google Calendar and find from last week's all hands, you can literally just go onto calendar, search for that document or search for the name of that event, easily find the attachment without having to actually find the event itself in your calendar. And even better, if you use the letter G as a little keyboard shortcut, you get this little pop-up which is like a date pop-up. So if you know that the date was last Tuesday or last Monday that you had an event, if you press G, it loads up a little calendar picker, and then you can easily just choose the date and get straight to that day in a flash. My fifth tip about how to use Google Calendar for personal organization is all about well-being, and this is about setting your working hours within Google Calendar. And so some people will have a public calendar embedded on their website to allow you to book a meeting at any time. But if you're someone like this, and even if you don't necessarily have your calendar in a public place, you may want to set up some working hours. And the reason for that is if you've got people in time zones across the world that you work with, maybe you work remotely, or maybe you've just got clients that work in all different countries. What you want to do is you want to set your working hours so that you don't have meetings at obscure times of the day. And here's how to do it. So if you go to your calendar and then click on the gear icon, like the settings menu, if you scroll down to a section called working hours, you can then click the days of the week that you work. So maybe if you only work part-time, you can only select certain days, and then select the working hours for each work day that you work. And what that means is that people will get notified, and there'll be like a little flag to say, heads up, this meeting time that you're trying to book is outside of Charles's normal working hours, and therefore they'll be discouraged. It won't necessarily stop them, but they'll be heavily discouraged to book a meeting at that time. So my last tip is just something particularly for the visual learners among us, which is just making it fun. So I think with personal organization, we can get caught up in trying to be so productive and trying to be organized at all times. So what I do is I personalize the calendar event types by using different colors, and if it's a certain meeting that I maybe need to prepare for, I might even use like an emoji in like the actual calendar event, just so I know that, okay, I need to prepare for this, or this is an important meeting or something like that. Kind of depends on what your company's like, how cool they are with you having emojis in calendar invites. But yeah, for sure, you can at least personalize your own personal calendar with like different colors. For me, it just means that I can get to the tasks and the events a little bit more quickly without having to remind myself what the heck it is. I just see the emoji, I see the color of the event, and I'm like, okay, this is a manager's meeting and it's an important one, and my brain knows what I have to do before I've even like processed what I'm having for breakfast. So that is my guide to using Google Calendar for personal organization and a few different tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. If you use Google Calendar for creating events in your company, in your startup, or just in your personal life, organizing events with friends and family, check out this video here where I go through a number of different tips and recommendations on how to use Google Calendar to manage your event. Otherwise, if you're not subscribed already, hit the subscribe button below, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.